All right, you guys, thank you so much for coming on. It is Sarah at Carnivore.Yogi, and today I'm super excited to have two ladies that I have been following for a while. They are so positive, so fun, so energetic, and have so much amazing stuff going on. The Strong Sistas, Sarah and Ashley. Welcome, you guys.
Hey, Sarah. Thank you so much for having us on. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So
no problem.
Oh wow, what was that?
I don't know. That was my Siri came on. It thought I said Sarah. Siri, just don't say my name. Sorry, yeah, okay. Or your name. That's so weird.
Cool. Well, let's just jump in. Tell everyone kind of how you got into carnivore, what your story is, what you were doing before, how long you've been doing it, et cetera, for people who don't know you, who haven't seen your stuff already.
Yes. Okay. Do you want to start?
A loaded question.
Okay. So Sarah and I have been into health and wellness for a very long time. And so if we flash back probably 2 to 3 years ago, we were definitely following like an if it fits your macros, IIFYM approach. But we weren't necessarily like processed food based. Yes, we would include some ice cream and things like that in from time to time, but we were very nutrient dense, what we thought was nutrient dense at the time, very plant-based, high carb, low fat. And so we were doing that for quite a bit of time. And then fast forward to 2017, 2018.
I don't know what you're getting at.
The autoimmune.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. So we, like she said, we've been into health and fitness for a really long time. So this has evolved in what it's looked like since this started. So yeah. I would say even back to 2014 is when we first started paying attention to this kind of stuff, which at the time was in a very negative light. So I suffered from an eating disorder back when I was in high school. So that was some 10 years ago. And she also had a different eating disorder. So orthorexia, which means you're kind of obsessed with eating only healthy foods. And mine at the time was anorexia and bulimia. So given this, of course, we had unusual attention to our bodies, and that led to unusual attention to health foods and health trends. So like she was saying, this eventually evolved into if it's your macros, which is where you count your macronutrients, so your carbs, fats, and your proteins. But for a really long time, we were very high carb and at the same time, very high plant.
And then all of a sudden symptoms just started arising and just started piling up and up and up.
Yeah.
And you're kind of told, hey, those are natural, right? You're aging, you're going to experience brain fog. You're going to get tired. You have chronic constipation. Oh, that's kind of something that you're just going to have to deal with the rest of your life. Some people are just constipated.
Yeah. So the surface level symptoms were like things that kind of everybody deals with, but nobody talks about. So like bloating.
Yeah, you guys had the bloating pictures on your one video. Wow, but I can totally relate. Yeah,
like it's distension and you don't think anything of it because females are supposed to fluctuate like that. And so you don't really do anything about it. So this kept piling and piling up. So other issues I started to deal with were on my skin. So I would have eczema or rashes, the butterfly rash. I had no circulation in my joints. So my hands were always cold and purple and orange, and things just kept going wrong. So fortunately, at one day I was just like, I think you were having enough of your no pooping, and I had enough of like the fact that I looked like I came from a different planet on my skin. And so I got my blood levels checked, which showed that I had elevated ANA. So I was sent to a rheumatologist.
I had elevated ANA as well.
She did. So then sent to a rheumatologist who did a series of additional tests on me, and my blood work came back looking like I was leaning towards lupus, but it wasn't fully there yet. And so symptom wise, again, like I had the butterfly rash. So basically my rheumatologist said like, hey, you're gonna get lupus one day. We're just gonna kind of watch you until then and deal with your symptoms. So she prescribed me 3 different medications. And I'm very lucky that my mom was there at the time because my mom has always been into holistic health. So she was like, you're way too young to go on medications. Like, we're not going to do that. So that started our journey of looking into different ways to take back our health. So like a naturopathic doctor, and then that led us to researching and getting into fasting, and then keto, and then here we are at Carnivore.
Yeah, so we fasting, keto, and then while we were keto though, we were very much plant-based keto.
Yeah.
If that's even possible. So we were still slamming down the veggies.
We like to call it vegan. So we were vegan with egg whites. vegan.
And then, so what eventually led us to carnivore was my friend suggested, hey, you should try out carnivore to like finally address your poop problem, because nothing was working. When I say chronic constipation, this is something that I've dealt with like my whole life. And it was very common for me to go 7, 8, 9, 10 days without pooping. And, you know, excess fiber just made it worse. All the laxatives just did not work on me. And so that's what kind of made us push into carnivore. And the rest is history.
That's how we met you.
I know, exactly. So many cool, such a great side effect of doing carnivore is just like the awesome community that you guys are just such a big part of. And it's like,
Yeah.
so cool. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you guys are so into fitness, and you guys lift some seriously heavy weights. Like I watch your stuff and I'm like, holy crap, like you guys lift some seriously heavy weights, and there are people out there who are like, there's no way that you can get in the gym and have performance and lift heavy and do all this stuff if you're eating carnivore. So talk about that a little bit. I love that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of objections to the whole concept of zero carb athlete, but I want to touch more on first. So we've been powerlifting for a really long time. So like lifting heavy, probably for 10 years or so now. We've experienced so many benefits in this regard since going carnivore that we honestly didn't think about this until we did a video about it a few weeks ago in terms of joint pain. So we would always get severe like joint pain in our hips. We'd have to take weeks off
From lifting heavy.
Yeah.
And like I experienced a lot of joint pain in my like knuckles and my hands from my grip and stuff. And I think that some things I'm not really talked about much is the amount of inflammation. It's all inflammation based, and that's going to be impacted heavily by your diet.
Mm-hmm.
And since going carnivore and eliminating the inflammatory foods for us, we do not deal with the joint pain anymore. So we're almost able to push ourselves more in the gym, which is really interesting, because back to my rheumatologist days, she actually she asked me what kind of exercise I was doing, and I told her like I'm really into powerlifting, and she's like, girl, you're gonna have to stop doing that because it's going to be harmful. And I totally understand that, like, yes, we should focus on other more therapeutic movements. We've talked about doing more yoga. I totally agree. But it was very scary to hear like, hey, you're gonna have to stop lifting one day because your joints just aren't gonna be able to keep up. And then flash forward to today, and it's like there's no issue. It's crazy.
So there's that piece. So the improved recovery, which allows us to not have to take, like, we can recover faster so we can lift more. But there's also the muscle building piece. We have been trying to gain muscle our whole life. And when we were plant-based, we would go through bulking periods, but we would just gain fat. And like, it was really hard for us to put on muscle. In this past year that we've been carnivore, I have put on more muscle than I have in my entire life. And I think it's just because bioavailable protein, bioavailable nutrients, I'm finally giving my body the nutrients that it needs, the protein building blocks to be able to build muscle. There are people who are vegan who are expert supplementers and know exactly how to supplement. And so there are some vegan bodybuilders who can gain muscle, but I had no idea how to supplement, because you can't get all the nutrients that you need from a plant-based diet. And so I think we were just deficient in so many things.
And then also the thing about that, my opinion on all the supplementing for bodybuilding, the vegan stuff, when I was vegan, tried to supplement all the protein, and I was allergic to every freaking vegan protein that I tried. Would make me horribly distended, just sick, like couldn't do it. So I think some people might be able to go that route with the pea proteins and the plant proteins, and they're okay. But if you have any kind of, I think, underlying autoimmune or digestive thing going on, that's really kind of off the table, and it's going to be an uphill battle to get the essential amino acids.
I think like the best way I've heard it put is just that we all have a different tolerance level to these items, and it probably has a lot to do with the state of your gut
permeability,
and like how inflamed you are. And so I don't know if it was something we were doing or something in our environment that led us to get like just an extremely leaky gut, and then inflammation everywhere, and then no tolerance for these things like corn, soy, not going to work. Pea protein, no. So we all tolerate it to some certain degree differently. And it's just, I think when it builds up to a certain point where you actually get an autoimmune condition is when people end up coming to lifestyles like carnivore. And then that's when they realize how powerful it can be. So I just wish that we could share this message with more people so they didn't have to come to that point to come to a healthier way of eating, which may involve some plants. Like if you tolerate them, that's totally fine.
Because our bodies have an underlying defense mechanism to deplete of some of these anti-nutrients and toxins. But if you overload them, at some point the system's gonna break.
And it makes me think of how you're on this topic of like, I can do yoga and I can also eat meat, because those two, for whatever reason, those things just don't seem like they mesh that much.
Yeah.
It really needs to be, we need to prioritize more being more animal based.
Yeah.
Like getting that message out there. Like there isn't some divide between caring about our bodies, doing yoga and helping the environment, and eating meat. Like that divide does not exist. They actually coincide if you do it responsibly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know both of us are super passionate about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other reason I definitely wanted to get you guys on here, is because, you know, me as a yoga teacher, I'm trying to, and someone whose life has basically been saved by yoga, the stress relief and just what it's done for me spiritually has been so amazing. But that whole thing of like, you can't eat meat and it's ruining the environment and blah, 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 like that whole bunch of crap needs to stop, you know. And what you guys are doing in regards to regenerative agriculture, working with White Oak Pastures, like that we got to connect at Oakchella, which was really awesome. We didn't get to hang out very much because it was like a blur of people everywhere. And that was a whole other thing. But, you know, I really want you guys to talk about this whole thing, because there's so much misinformation about meat and the environment and health and all that stuff. So I know it's like loaded topic right there, but tell everyone a little bit about where you guys are at with all of that.
Yeah. Okay. So that is a loaded question, but I think like the most simple thing to understand and start with is the health of our soil in the US is gone, right? So the soil is degraded. It is not healthy. It has significantly less nutrients than it did thousands of years ago. So therefore vegetables now have significantly less nutrients than they did thousands of years ago because of that depleted soil.
There's like a statistic where it's just, I like saying this one because it kind of puts it in perspective. We would have to eat like 8 or 9 oranges to receive the same amount of nutrients that our grandparents got in one. So like that just kind of is like, wow. And if you're eating like 8 to 9 oranges, that's like, I don't even know how many carbs that is, but you'll have other issues.
So returning to the soil, so you have to ask the question, how did we get here? We got here by mono agriculture. So you see all these fields that only produce one crop: corn, soy, help me, what else?
But I'm from the Midwest, so like this is all we see. Then you go down south and it's cotton.
So just like these fields and fields and fields of these single crop agriculture lands, each year that just depletes the soil nutrients more and more and more.
You can't get that back.
And so that's really degraded the soil. And so you now have to ask the question, okay, how do we get the nutrients back into the soil? And the answer is ruminant animals. And it's such a stark difference from what we have been told for so long, because I think there's so much funding and money in the back pockets of people who are plant-based and vegan. But really, regenerative agriculture and responsible holistic grazing is the answer to return nutrients back into our soil. Is that like a pretty good summary? What else can
I mean, we could talk about this for hours, and it's really interesting. And I don't mean to bring up, we're not going to dive into this topic, but when you think of politics and you think about like what we care about on so many other elements, and then you think of the environment aspect, and you're seeing like Silicon Valley like promoting all the plant-based stuff, it creates this really interesting divide, because I don't know what to do when people who are going to be making decisions for my future and my kids' future are pushing that we move more and more towards like plant-based things. And it's just like, what do you do?
But I think that that's where the confusion stems from. There is a huge difference between feedlot cow production and responsible regenerative agriculture. Huge difference between the two and what those do to the soil. Ultimately, the ruminant animals who are in feedlots, they are fed feed, and that feed comes from those monocrop lands, the corn, the soy,
Also, their poop is not distributed across the land, which
Yes.
is what ends up putting the nutrients back into the soil.
Yes.
And then you lead into the issues like water contaminations. There's a lot going wrong there, which I understand why then the plant-based side would argue against beef. But you have to look at those people who are doing it right and doing it the way that it's been done for so many just generations. And
returning to the simple elements of nature.
Yes.
And I think something that isn't talked about enough is not only the importance of regenerative ruminant agriculture, but the importance of polyspecies grazing. So the importance of having different animals on the land and rotating through. So we all of us love white oak pastures. They are a great example of polyspecies grazing. So they have all of their thousands of acres separated into like blocks, and they rotate animals through these blocks. And so they have 10 different species on land. And each of these animals plays such a unique role in returning nutrients back to the soil. So the cows are going to poop. Then if the cows are rotated out of that pasture, the chickens come, as an example, the chickens come and they come peck at the poop and they spread that poop all around the soil. So each animal plays its role in returning the nutrients back into the soil. And so I think keeping in mind the importance of polyspecies grazing is important when trying to find a local farmer and finding someone that is supporting the things that you believe in.
Yeah, I think whenever somebody questions us, we get this question a lot, like how do you deal with in your brain the fact that you're eating so much meat and that's going to hurt the environment? You can either go on that little rant or you can provide them with resources to look into. So our favorite resources besides White Oak Pastures is the work of Alan Savory. Yes. So we always just recommend people to check out the Savory Institute and all the work that they're doing in regenerative agriculture. And if these people look into it, they will see scientifically that there's evidence that we need ruminant animals.
Yeah, and I think we just have to keep spreading that message. You know, I feel like we've got Dr. Baker and Dr. Saladino. We've got enough people. This is what I do. You know, if people want to go there, I'm like, you can go argue with them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to offer you this alternative to look into. This is, you know, you can send me your studies and your research and whatever, but I want you to really take an honest look at this, because this is a model that, and we can, and it's they have vegetable farming at White Oak as well.
Yeah.
So
it's necessary.
It's necessary.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Responsibly raised vegetable agriculture is an important piece of this puzzle too.
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
And so if we're going to eat a vegetable heavy diet, which some people are still going to make that choice because they feel a certain way about it. No, I can't argue with how anyone feels and whatever. But if they want to make that choice, then they can also support regenerative agriculture, such as White Oak, and get their food there, you know, instead of thing from God knows wherever, and we're killing the environment with these transportation costs so you can get your avocados from Mexico, you know, and
your
avocado toast. Yeah.
Ecuador.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about the process of growing plants too in the monocrops. It's like mass murder of just tiny species like bugs, rodents, and things like we need those things for our soil too. So there are a lot of interesting things to look into. I'm actually I look forward. I know at the next White Oak, there's going to be an organic vegetable seminar. I look forward to it.
We're going, sign us up.
I want to learn more. Yeah, please go. I know my mom's going to go. I want to learn more about that because I think that that's an important component, and I'm not against vegetable consumption.
No.
What we're against is the monocropping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, you know, and I love how you guys just really do a wonderful job of staying positive, and just your whole channel, everything that you do is so positive. So how do you, we talked a little bit about this before we went on camera, keep like the positive momentum flowing with you guys is so huge. How do you do it?
I am blessed to have had the opportunity to live with my sister. I have, growing up and in college, I was always very, very stressed. I was a very stressed individual, loading a ton on my plate. And I think that was part of the autoimmunity, the inflammation, and some of the symptoms that manifested were like insomnia, panic attacks. And so I've lived a lot of my life being in a super stressed state. And then I had the opportunity to move in with my sister, and my sister is the most positive person I've ever met in my life. And she's really helped me like switch to a new mindset in life. And I think that has been the most like important part, is her influence on my mindset. I'm so blessed, so blessed.
Oh, but she keeps, so I think like the secret to what you're asking is the fact that we have each other, which I think shows how important a strong community is, where there's positive influences. So although we're on social media a lot, we keep each other in check. Like, we engage with our friends on there, like you, and we engage with positive people, but we do not consume negativity.
Nope.
We have a zero negativity policy. I found myself on YouTube getting caught up in this just the other week, and I realized like, all right, I got to cut back. Because it was impacting my mood, and especially when we're just trying to spread a positive message, like we can't consume that negativity, because it's gonna hinder our attempts to spread positivity. And the way as a whole, like, I have not always been a super positive person. Mental health is highly correlated to your diet too. So when I was going through the worst of my autoimmune conditions, I was also going through a very bad relationship, and I was not the person she was describing. So it's taken a lot of shifts. I think people just accept that they deal with depression and anxiety, like she was saying. And it stinks. Like, your life, like, it's not worth living at a certain point if you are going to wake up in the morning and wish that you could still remain asleep. And the fact that I wake up, I go to bed every night like, oh, I can't wait till tomorrow. Like,
we say this, tomorrow's gonna be a great day. Tomorrow's gonna be a great day.
So part of it is your attitude. We tell each other tomorrow's gonna be a great day. And the other part is your food.
Yeah.
Like, what you're gonna feed yourself and what's going on in your brain is highly correlated to your diet. And so that was a huge push in the right direction for me.
I led 2 more things.
Okay, so we're gonna keep going.
One, I think both of us have never been this aligned with a passion. We've never been so passionate about something.
Because it changed our life.
It changed our life. And it's hard to hide back being so amazed and happy with this passion. So that's, I think, one reason why we're so excited to share. But then another thing, so going back to like the engagement. So we like to think about, you want to be able to fill your own cup. So fill your own cup with creation, sprinkle in a little bit of engagement, but then remove all consumption. Negative consumption is like gotta go from your cup. Like, there is no room in your cup for negative consumption, and you let that leak out. So that's kind of how we
work in progress.
Yeah.
I love it. And it's continual too, because it's not like the trolls and the naysayers, they're not going anywhere. And you guys just went on the doctor's show, which I know you've talked a little bit about before on your channel and on Instagram, but tell me a little bit about that, how that experience was for you. I know you were for most of the conversations.
So let me just explain how it happened.
Yeah.
So this all sourced, I remember specifically being in the gym last fall, a story that some small reporter in London wrote about us. They asked us a few questions via email, like simple questions. A story that they wrote about us was leaked to the Daily Mail, which is like this huge tabloid in London. And this article just made us seem like raw vampires, crazy people. They used raw everywhere they could in the article. And Sarah and I just like, wow, what happened? Like, honestly, almost in tears. Was crazy. So that actually caught the eye of the doctors, and the doctors said, hey, we want to have you guys on. And so we said yes. So that's kind of where it stemmed from.
Yeah. And so I would say there was a lot more negativity that came from that Daily Mail article.
Yeah.
And it's not that we were ashamed of what they said about us, because in large part it was accurate, besides the fact that they wanted to paint this picture that we only eat raw meat, which is not accurate.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. It was that there was a lot of hate that came from that.
Yeah, I thought the article was not really that horrible. And I thought it wasn't bad, but then Joe Rogan always says, don't read the comments.
I need to learn that. And that's something that we're putting into practice, is no negativity. Yeah. So that was a huge lesson for us, because we read the comments and it was bad.
Yeah.
But fast forward to the doctors, I think it's been interesting, and it seems like there's a shift, and there's actually a lot of support coming from it. So we had a lot of people find us through that show and say, hey, I didn't like the way you guys were treated, which if you haven't seen that episode yet, you should check it out. I think
it was very clear from the start they had an agenda
Yeah.
because they brought on plant-based doctors
And
so
a
it was
judge.
and a judge. So it was like 7 versus 3.
Yeah.
And they muted us during most of the episode, so we just couldn't participate. And then they gave Dr. Saladino, like barely any time.
It seemed like they attacked Paul more. So they were not willing to listen to his scientific background.
Well, they didn't give him a chance to respond to most of the stuff. They would just throw something out, and then they wouldn't let him respond, and they'd move on to the next thing and throw more stuff out. And it was like,
yeah,
am I the only one seeing this?
It would blow up like this huge, like, thank you, and then like move on to the topic. And it was like, wait, he didn't get to say anything.
And then when they were talking to us, the questions that they asked us, they were trying to frame us as troubled individuals. So rather than focusing on how amazing we feel, the questions were, I heard you guys eat a lot of raw meat.
Isn't it expensive?
Isn't it expensive?
Don't you have eating disorders?
Don't you have eating disorders? Rather than like, wow, it's so cool that you guys feel amazing and you're autoimmune. Oh, and then one of the doctors was like, like, what made you think that you maybe had an autoimmune condition? Like maybe. So like,
Well, I had blood work.
I sent them my blood work.
Yeah,
with
I
the
did too.
diagnosis, and they disregarded it. And like, it was crazy. I don't know. I mean, obviously we know why that happened. Like, who's funding them?
Plant-based agenda. It's fine.
Yeah, but I think it brought our community together.
Yeah,
I really do.
Sure.
It did. And it's just like the unity of the community, and then another chance for us to continue to just talk more, spread the message.
Yeah.
Make this side louder, because this is not muted. This is like a full opportunity, and your channel, your YouTube channel, you guys are doing so much amazing stuff, like really letting everyone peer into your daily life, show you all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. I mean, you can't edit, they cannot edit that. They can't have an agenda behind that. So it's cool now that it's brought more attention to you, what you're doing. So it gives you a little bit more of a microphone, but still it's like, it just shows kind of what we're up against, Yeah.
I think the doctor's episode kind of like almost pushed us towards vlogging every day, because we recognized, hey, this is the older generation trying to target and come at us. Yeah. And we need to show our generation that we are we're thriving. We're doing so well.
And also that it's not crazy to be eating a bunch of meat, and that it's not anti-environment, and that we're not like weirdos who live in our parents' basements. It's like, we want to show that you can be a normal human being that you see at the grocery store and still live this way, even though it's so radical. It's just, I feel like people just have a really hard time accepting it, because it is really uncommon.
Yeah.
So that's why we're doing the vlog, is so people who are also exploring this lifestyle don't have to feel like they're alone.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have each other. If she wasn't here, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I probably wouldn't even be eating carnivore. So we're very lucky, but a lot of people are doing it on their own in their families, and they're getting questions left and right. So we're trying to make people feel like they're not alone.
Coming out.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. One question I wanted to ask you guys, because I also get it. I'm also someone who has struggled with bulimia, anorexia, all kinds of eating disorders my whole friggin' life. And for me, carnivore has been like this oasis of like, oh my gosh, I finally am not killing myself with eating disorders. Yet people, like they did on the doctors, kind of try to frame carnivore as an eating disorder. So what do you guys say about that? What would you say in response to that?
I honestly think that an eating disorder can stem from having no control over your health, because you feel lost, and so therefore that stems fear, and then you fear food because you don't know how that food is going to get digested in your body. Is it going to go to fat? Is it going to go to muscle? And so just having no control leads to fear. And it's funny, now we're completely in control of our health with carnivore, and so now I do, like, there's no fear of food. I've gained 12 to 13 pounds when being on carnivore, and I couldn't feel more comfortable in my skin.
I did an entire video on like whether carnivore is an eating disorder itself and my experience with that. And I will say that although I like to, in the past, I would say, once you have an eating disorder, you always have an eating disorder, because you always are going to deal with those thoughts that go through your head, just that you've been trained to think like, oh, I look chubby this day, or this X or Y, whatever. And the mental freedom that I've gotten from carnivore, like you said, is just incredible. And I think that so back in high school is when I dealt with my bulimia, and that's a very defined habit, binging and purging. But you can still have an eating disorder if you're somebody who is just like going through the day, not liking your body, feeling chubby, feeling out of control, feeling bloated,
doing too much fasting.
So this is going to impact your food choices, and then that is just a nasty cycle to be in. And so most people, I'm not diagnosing everybody in the world with an eating disorder, but if you have a really poor body image, you're struggling in some way or another with a mental disorder. And so coming to carnivore and finally feeling in control of my food choices, and I know that this food is going to nourish me, not make me bloated or feel like crap the next day or give me rashes or hives, that's very powerful. And so there's a lot of evidence out there that carnivore is very powerful for healing eating disorders and other mental disorders, obviously, too. I don't remember who I linked in that video description, like different podcasts that talk about it. But there's a lot of people out there who are healing from eating disorders by coming to carnivore. Even though it seems like a restrictive diet, it does so much for your mental health that you are able to live your life not fully focused on food anymore.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Yeah, I love it. And I'll link that video below this one as well, just so people can watch that and get your full take on it and find those resources. But yeah, it's I think it's another misconception about this way of eating, that it is restrictive, because for me it's like the least restricted that I've ever felt. And you guys do occasionally eat like non-carnivore foods like Rebel Creamery and things like that. Like, talk about that a little bit for people.
Yeah, so I think that if you're coming to carnivore and you're like trying to heal, I think that it is important to be strict so that way your body has that opportunity to heal. But I feel like I'm at a place now where I have control over my health, so my body can totally handle non-carnivore foods from time to time. And so right now we are in the middle of Illinois, in the middle of winter, so we just don't have much local produce. And so our like non-carnivore food choice to have on occasion is like Rebel Creamery. We've noticed that it doesn't like cause too many side effects, maybe some more farts. But I think that experimenting to finding what non-carnivore foods works with you is totally fine. Like, you don't have to be super strict to be considered a carnivore or to be a part of the community. I think that that's kind of a thing that people fear before even starting carnivore, so that stops them. But you don't have to be 100% strict. You can be carnivore-ish. You can be, what's most important is being animal-based.
Yeah, I think we talked about this with Kevin Stock a while ago, and it was the whole like, what mindset do you take on when you're carnivore? Do you go into it saying like, okay, I can only eat animal products? That could lead to some disordered thinking and feeling trapped. Or do you say instead, I'm going to base my diet around animal products, and if I can incorporate these items if I want, chances are you're gonna start not wanting to incorporate those items because you feel so much better eating just meat or just animal products.
Yeah.
So you need to realize what kind of person you are and what kind of mindset works for you. Never put yourself in a box though, if that's gonna lead to like this feeling of feeling trapped and, oh, okay, now I'm going to binge on other things because I told myself I couldn't have them.
Yeah.
I think it's a healthy approach to say like, hey, what can work for me? I'm going to be animal based and I'll go from there. So that's another thing we like to tell people who are going to carnivore is, yes, like she said, you might benefit from being strict for a little bit if you are healing, but never like look at it as like an end all be all restrictive thing. I just think that and like you understand, coming from a disordered background, that's not going to do.
That restricted mindset doesn't work.
Not going to work.
So I don't take it.
Yeah.
There. Yeah, I agree. And I think that we can get caught up in dogma and ideology. Like, it's just not necessary. And I see it happening in the carnivore community where people are kind of like, oh, well, they had an avocado, so they're not carnivore anymore, and trying to like take people's carnivore card away because they like try to reintroduce a couple of things or have a couple blueberries every now and then. And it's just that's not a thing, it's not a thing.
Last summer, we did some like experiments with a bunch of carbs because we had access to local produce. So we did some fruit, we did some yogurt, we did some local squash. rice and things like that. And so it was fun to experiment through and see what things we tolerated and what things we didn't. And I think I encourage everyone to run their own experiments because everyone has such different guts. So like a sweet potato did not work well for me, but it worked fine for her. So it just a bunch of examples like that.
Yeah, just keeping an open mind, I think, is the most important thing. So tell me a little bit about, I know you guys have been kind of doing some stuff behind the scenes, White Oak Pastures. You've done some apprentice work on other farms. Talk a little bit about that and where you guys are going with all of that, your plans for farming.
Yeah. We want to start our own farm. We will be starting our own farm sometime in the next 2 to 3 years. We're saving up now, but it is one of our future goals, and it will happen. And Sarah has a lot more experience on it, but it's just something that we're so passionate about. And
we didn't grow up understand. Our mom has a hobby farm. It's adorable. She like rescues animals, but we didn't grow up understanding the whole concept of like having your own land. And like even when it comes to having a family, like having your kid learn these chores and get down and dirty in the dirt and what that does for their immune system. And so our own personal journey, I've always known that like I want to have kids, and I just want to give my kids the best chance to be healthy in the future. And so I know that means getting back to traditional ways and living on a farm. And so that's a huge motivation for me. So I have spent some time over the past like year going to different farms and kind of learning from them. And it's because we want to have our own farm.
Yeah.
So besides that, so that's kind of the motivation for that. And then of course to do our part in repairing the land, and then also to be self-sustainable in terms of growing our own food. I think that'd be really cool. And we've learned this all as we go. Like I said, we did not grow up this way.
We grew up in the suburbs.
We'll be those ridiculous suburb millennials trying to farm and making a fool of themselves for a really long time. But I mean, you have to start somewhere.
Like, why not start?
Yeah.
Don't let the fear of like messing up hold you back.
So that's one thing. And then on other projects we're working on is we've got within all of this is the whole concept of nose to tail. So we like to at least demonstrate living more nose to tail, and we're trying ourselves to live more that way, which means kind of you eat from the whole animal, so you don't let anything go to waste. And I just think this is a sustainable approach you can take to an animal-based diet. And so we show that more on YouTube as well. But within all of that, we just released our Organ Encyclopedia, which is our guide to eating nose to tail. It's more of like a practical, it was a side project, it was really fun.
Yeah.
It's like a practical approach to anybody who's interested in eating more nose to tail. And then going from there, we are going to be releasing a cookbook, probably early summer 2020. That's going to be a full 150 plus recipes of nose to tail eating. And the hope is to kind of get rid of that myth that like carnivore is restrictive or boring.
Yeah.
Because it's going to provide a lot of different creative outlets for people to get fun in the kitchen. We're foodies.
Oh yeah.
So like thinking of just eating steaks for the rest of our life is like,
no, thank you.
No. So that's the hope there. So that's another project we're working on.
Our goal is to like live and breathe nose to tail, make it as approachable to anyone who wants to come into this way of life as possible.
And we're not perfect. Like this is something we're trying to figure out day by day, because we're not trained, but like
raised completely different.
We were raised, my parents are amazing, but like we were not raised this way. And so it's a lot of untraining and learning different things and then trying to implement those on a daily basis. And that's our main goal right now, is just kind of, practice what we preach.
The farm, we haven't worked out the details yet. It will happen. I need to finish my degree and like just finish this.
You're like heavy into all kinds of stuff academically right now. Like,
yeah, I am close to being done. I should defend and get my PhD end of summer or fall of 2020, which is super exciting.
I'm trying to keep her on track. I provide moral support.
Yeah. So I got to get a few more papers out, write my dissertation, and then it is time to defend. So we will, you guys please hold me accountable.
We will for sure. Yeah. And you guys are also doing, I see you have like a coaching program for other people who may want to work with you guys. talk a little bit about that.
About your nutrition stuff.
Oh yeah, so I did postgraduate studies in integrative nutrition, and then so we do offer training and nutrition coaching. It's not our biggest focus right now because we're trying to put into practice a lot of other things, but we do take on clients and we do work with them remotely online.
Yeah.
And so that's very rewarding because even just helping someone go from keto to carnivore, the amount of health improvement they can see, and just sometimes your role as a coach is really interesting is you are just there to provide support.
Yeah.
Because they don't have anybody else in their life who support them.
Yeah.
And like, I know firsthand how powerful support can be. And so that's kind of our approach is we take a very supportive, we're open to anybody's like different issues, and it's awesome working with clients. So we do, that's another part of our life we love. We've met some of our best friends, our clients.
For sure.
Oh, that's awesome. And there's another Oakchella coming up in May. Yes.
Yeah, you know all about that. So
May 1st through the 3rd, y'all better be there.
well, what is White Oakchella? Give them a little background.
So it's basically a celebration of regenerative agriculture, which is incredible. And it occurs at White Oak Pastures in Bluffton, Georgia.
So it's an event.
It's an event.
Skip that.
And it's going to, this year we have a few more. So last year was the first time. And so this is the second annual White Oakchella. And Dr. Paul Saladino will be there to give a talk, and Dr. Mercola will be there to give a talk as well.
So
and
there's different
Dr.
talks.
Barry too, right? Is he still coming?
He's not going to be able to make it this year.
Bummer.
That's interesting.
He will make sure to come next year.
Yeah.
But
So there's talks, and then there's different events. Like I said, there's the organic farming, or there's like
farm experiences.
farm experiences. So you can go on a tour of White Oak Pastures butchering facility, and there is yoga with Sarah. So
Yes.
Both mornings too.
both more. Oh wow.
Yeah,
So
it was both mornings in December too.
Girl, okay, we will make it now. So it's an all-around like
And our mama will
wellness,
be there, too.
regenerative agriculture retreat to find like-minded friends
Yeah.
who are also on their health journeys and eating a lot of meat.
Yeah.
It's a ton of fun.
Awesome. So exciting. And yeah, just it's really cool. I went to the one in December, and it was just really cool to get to be around other carnivores because, and just people who eat a lot of meat. Some people were there like, I'm just heavy meat, but I'm not quite carnivore. And that's cool too. We love these people, you know, but it was nice to just make friends with people. And I've kept in contact with a lot of the people that I've met in December. And I've got a lot of new friends now. So that's been really awesome too.
And some people have been saying that it's expensive. I think it's like $140 for 3 meal tickets. The event itself is free. So if you want to come camp and then just not have any of the meals and bring your own food, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, or
but
you can just buy from their farm store too.
yeah, but I mean,
They have grills out there. So people were like grilling the last
exactly.
time.
Yeah.
They're
But-
open to so many things.
But it's $140 for 3 all-you-can-eat meals with some of the best
Oh,
meat
it's so
in
good.
the world.
Think about one of those like Japanese all-you-can-eat buffets.
Carnivore style.
Carnivore style.
Carnivore
It's
style.
high quality stuff. It's
Yeah.
so worth it.
So good. Yeah, it was so good. And I learned so much going too, just from Will, and I mean, just stuff I didn't know. So you just get, and it's so beautiful and green there. So you just get this appreciation for where the food comes from, how the land is treated, like how the animals are treated. I mean, it's really remarkable, and I recommend it to anybody who is eating a meat heavy diet just to explore it, you know, no judgment if that's not the route you want to go, but it's a cool thing to be aware of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can't wait. That's coming
Well,
up.
so any other exciting stuff coming up that I know you guys have got a lot of stuff under wraps right now that you're not necessarily talking about, but anything you want to share with people before we kind of head out?
So yeah, we have one other project that we're really excited about. It's been going on for like almost a year
It's
now.
taking a while to develop.
But it's going to be a resource to help people kind of feel more confident in their nutrition when it comes to carnivore. So we're really excited about that one. You guys will be the first to know. But besides that, that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us on here. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming on. It took a few tries to get us all on the same schedule, but it's definitely worth it. And I feel like your message and your positivity is just so helpful to so many, including myself. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you for being our friend. Honestly, we
Aw.
love meeting people online. It's become like, it's crazy to think it, and even though it kind of flies in the face of like us trying to like homestead and be more traditional, yet here we are on social media. It's just like we have to spread these messages somehow. So meeting people like you along the way has been a treat.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Sarah. Bye, Sarah.
Bye. Okay.